All right, so now we're ready to start building our dynamic window component. So as with any 3D model, it's always best to have a sketch or an idea or a plan rather than going straight to the computer and just building a model. So I always need to kind of think things through, and so that's what I've done here is I've created this sketch and just kind of laid out this simple window component, and really what I started to do is address or create these formulas that we're going to end up putting into this spreadsheet. So as I mentioned before, a dynamic component is basically a 3D model with a spreadsheet attached to it. So let's take a look at this sketch that I've created. So here's our concept sketch, and so really all I did was just draft out or draw out a 3D window, and so this is going to be a component. And I'm going to call that one vertical 1, V1, and this will be V2, and then horizontal 1 and horizontal 2, and then we've got our glass, and that'll be GL. So the pieces of this component, these are each going to be components themselves. So you need to just kind of like map that out. All right, so then the attributes, the overall like XYZ or red, green, and blue axes or dimensions, those are going to be the window width, the window height, and the window depth. And so the frame thickness is going to be a configurable attribute. So the user will be able to enter 2 inches or 1 inch or 3 inches or whatever they want to do. All right, and then so those are kind of simple. I mean, those are a little bit easier. You got window width, frame thickness, and then what you have to do is define all of the other attributes based on these other attributes. So like, for instance, this H1, the actual length of it, we don't want to just say it's 2 feet because we want it to kind of rebuild itself. So what we do is we say that it's going to be the window width minus the frame thickness minus the frame thickness. So you can say we've got a frame thickness here and a frame thickness here. And that's what creates this. So it's the overall window width minus 2 of these, and we get this one dimension. So that's what I did is I just kind of went around and thought about like what these formulas are going to work out to be in order to make this dynamic component. The glass is always going to sit in the middle, but you know what? Actually, something I forgot is that the glass is going to have its origin point. We'll add that in. It's no big deal. So let's talk about position, and I'll mention the glass. So the other thing you got to do is identify where these are going to sit. So like the overall axes of this component are going to sit right here on A. So A is going to be 0, 0, 0. Now B, to get this H1 component to sit up top like that, the formula is going to be, on the blue axis, is going to be the window height minus a frame thickness. So you could take this entire window height minus the frame thickness, and that's this distance here. So you can see how each one of these attributes being the position, the size, and these different things, each one of these guys is dependent on the other. So you got to make like kind of a smart, I don't know, algebra equation or whatever to make this thing very configurable. Now, the other piece of this model is going to be, so that's the 3D object up top, the 2D graphic down low. And again, it's like, we want the frame to match the frame thickness and the window depth. Actually the window depth is going to be configurable as well. So, this really is just a sketch just to get rolling, and then I always have to kind of figure things out on the fly here. So that's what we'll be doing. That'll be fun, right? Okay, so then what else do we have of note here? So similar thing here, the 2D graphic is actually a little simpler because the blue axis is just non-existent, and that is actually going to sit right on the bottom at 0, 0, 0. That's ideal. I just drew it down here, but actually it'll just sit attached to the bottom, and that way it won't disrupt anything. Okay, so that's kind of the idea to get started. Let's close out of that, and let's go into Sketchup. And what we're going to do now is build our window frame. All right, so first things first is let's just draw using our rectangle tool. I'm going to draw this at, we'll call it 2 inches by 8 inches. Now, I chose 2 inches by 8 inches by 2 feet very arbitrarily. I just decided, I'm going to start with that, and then the whole thing is going to be configurable, but I just needed a place to begin. All right, so now this first piece, I'm going to make this into a component. So with my select tool, I triple click and then right click, make component, and I'm going to call this V1. All right, so that's our vertical 1. And that's really it. We're going to replace our selection and choose create. All right, so now I'm going to make a copy of this. Let's see. I can make a copy of this at like, I think 22 inches will give us that overall width of 2 feet. All right, so now this one, I'm going to make that unique, and we're going to call that, let's go to our entity info, and we're going to call that one V2, like that. Cool. All right, and then let's see, down low, we're going to do another, pull this up by 2, make component, and we're going to call that I have on my diagram as H2, and then we're going to make another copy of that up top, and we're going to make that unique, and we're going to call that one H1. Sweet. Okay, our glass is going to be in the middle, so we'll just start with it there, like that. We need to make that into a component, and we're going to call that glass, just GL, and say create. All right, so that's really it. I mean, nothing much to it. So that looks pretty good, and now we do need to draw our 2D graphic. So for this one, I guess I will just go and draw. I'll just kind of retrace this like that, and then go to our midpoint, and then I'll take this and make it a component, and I'm going to call that is going to be 2D. So we'll start with 2D F1. So that's our frame 1. Create. And this one is going to be 2D frame 2. And this is going to be make component 2D G. We'll do GL to fit with our other one. So GL, like that. Okay, so basically all the stuff on the bottom, all those pieces should be on the layer 2D graphic. And then everything else, if I hold shift and invert my selection like that, everything else should be on the layer 3D object, like that. So now what that allows me to do is just toggle between our 2D graphic. So here's our 2D graphic and our 3D object, like that. All right, so that is the gist of that. Let's just add some glass to, I'll go to my materials, and we've got like glass, and I'll just paint it with the blue. And I'm going to go to File and choose Save. And I'm going to save this into my Dropbox Resources Components. And I've got a folder in here called TSWFA. That's the SketchUp workflow for architecture. And I'm just going to call this our door. We'll call this our door tutorial. So that way I'm not going to disrupt the actual one that already exists. So we'll do condoc _ door tutorial. Okay. Okay, so now we have all of our pieces laid out. Everything is all set up and built and created into components. So now we need to assign attributes, and that we will cut here and do that in the next tutorial.